Hello gamers, and welcome back to RNG number 32, part 2, where we will be going over all the recent game showcases and releases for the month of April. If you missed it, part 1 is the one where I talk about gaming news and drama and terrible fanboy takes and stuff, which will be linked in the description if you're interested. If not, and you just want to keep up with the new games, this is the video for you. So, let's get into it, starting with April showcases. First, of course, there was the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd. If you missed it, we went into detail on the Switch 2, what I think of it, and what I recommend for you as a consumer in the previous RNG number 31 and part 1 of number 32 that's linked in the description. EastAsiaSoft Showcase number 24 on April 7th, a company to keep an eye on if you don't like all the censorship we have to deal with. AAA Initiative on April 10th, the showcase you want to check out every year if you want alternatives to the AAA nonsense. Indie Live Expo on April 13th, a live event featuring more indie games. Galaxies Gaming Showcase 2025 on April 17th, a new showcase featuring even more games. Don't say there's nothing to play if you haven't watched any of these, just saying. Top Hat Studios Showcase on April 22nd and Playism Game Show on April 25th, two niche publisher showcases to round out all the notable showcases of April 2025. Now, time to get into the releases. Remember, if you want to keep track of every game featured on these RNG lists, as well as most games featured on the channel, check out my Steam Curator, which is linked in the description. First, a game I missed that seems to be reviewing fairly positively. Rogue Genesia came out of early access on March 7th. Based on the name, would you believe me if I told you it was a roguelite? An action one with bullet hell stuff at that. Haste on April 1st, a super fast-paced running platformer that looks like it would scratch a 3D Sonic itch if you're like me and don't like modern 3D Sonic. Maybe. Koira on April 1st, a cute little casual exploration puzzle game where you protect your little doggo friend. Only Way is Down on April 1st, a cat simulator, only this time you're stuck on a construction site and need to get down. You can even make your cat fat. Lonestar came out of early access on April 3rd, a roguelite where you customize the weapons of a ship and battle other ships with some intuitive customization. Tetris the Grandmaster 4 Absolute Eye on April 3rd, a Tetris game. If you wanted more Tetris, now you'll have more Tetris. Rogue Loops on April 4th, another action roguelite. Would you believe it? Escape the time loop. Vaporwave Pinball on April 4th. The description is in the title. Making my job easy, just saying. Vindefiant on April 4th, a 2D platformer where you are the villain. Nice. Go and kill to your heart's content, you savage. Peppered, an existential platformer on April 7th, a story-driven platformer where your choices may or may not matter. Probably the latter. Dr. Plague on April 8th. An atmospheric 2.5D stealth game where you are a sneaky plague doctor trying to stop the plague and also stop a corrupt order of knights. Locomoto on April 8th, a casual game where you manage a train, gather and transfer resources, and try to save your hometown somehow. All in Abyss, Judge the Fake on April 9th, a game where you play cards against psychotic-looking anime waifu witches. Commandos Origins on April 9th, a World War II real-time tactics game. You're welcome, history bros. Girls Made Pudding on April 9th, an exploration and crafting game where you visit towns where people have disappeared from. Snow Bros 2 Special on April 9th, a remake of a silly arcade game from the 90s. Blueprints on April 10th, a puzzle game where you lay out rooms of a mansion and try to get to the end. Castle of Alchemists came out of early access on April 10th, a fast-paced tower defense game where you use a combination of constructs, traps, and your own metal. Monaco 2 on April 10th, a top-down heist game with co-op. Doesn't seem to be hitting as well as the first, though. Pilo and the Holobook on April 10th, a casual exploration game where you turn things into stickers. Promise Mascot Agency on April 10th, a cursed-looking mascot recruitment adventure game. Yeah, this is a weird-looking one. Shell Runner came out of early access on April 11th, a top-down extraction shooter? Huh. Also doesn't seem to be hitting, but can only go up from here, I hope. Fubuki, Zero In on Hollow Earth Hollow Live Alternative on April 12th, a 2D side-scroller action game with VTubers. You simp. Lunacid Tears of the Moon on April 12th, a dark fantasy action dungeon crawler that's a prequel to the existing Lunacid game. Also, it's free. Ninja Brigade featuring Jonah Weingarten on April 13th. Don't know who that is, but this is a ninja Metroidvania where a guy gets sucked into an arcade machine. Alright dude. Forever Skies came out of early access on April 14th, a survival game in a post-apocalyptic setting where you craft and build an airship and fly it around to other places. Looks so addicting, not gonna lie. Warside on April 14th, an Advanced Wars clone. Yep, seems to need some work though. Chains of Freedom on April 15th, another turn-based tactics game set in a dystopian Eastern European setting. Sea Frog on April 15th, a 2D platformer where you play as a sea frog who surfs on a wrench and goes fast. Space for Sale came out of early access on April 15th, a top-down space realty management simulator with exploration. Also seems to need some work. Hashtag Drive Rally came out of early access on April 16th, a racing game. That is all. Fawn Town on April 16th. Crash landed on an island with amnesia. Sounds like a familiar story, but this is a base building game where you try to repair your ship and leave, I guess. Rusty Rabbit on April 16th, a game where rabbits have taken over the world, because humans left. Now you have to explore the remains in this 2D platformer. Synergy came out of early access on April 16th, a colony sim where you manage the economy and stuff, and do a bit of terraforming on a strange planet. Bionic Bay on April 17th, an atmospheric puzzle platformer with teleporting mechanics to help your main character not die. Chasmal Fear on April 17th, a horror FPS with a body camera perspective, another one that needs some work. Gorn 2 on April 17th, a sequel to the popular VR violent cartoony gladiator simulator. Get up close and personal. iRobot on April 17th, another reboot of a 1980s game from Atari. Man, they've been putting out a bit lately, huh? Mandragora Whispers of the Witch Tree on April 17th, a Souls-like Metroidvania. Yeah, another one. This one has bad reviews because they collected data as stated in their EULA, but they have removed it since then. Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds Ultimate on April 17th, a cutesy anime beat-em-up with online and local co-op. Go be kawaii with your friends. Sacre Bleu on April 17th, a fast-paced platformer shooter with bullet time and Frenchiness. Soul Slinger Envoy of Death came out of early access on April 17th, a roguelite FPS where you use the power of souls to become stronger with each death. Tempest Rising on April 17th, a post-nuclear war RTS. Fight for survival and resources while keeping the peace from the Tempest faction. Tempopo on April 17th, a cute casual music puzzle game for kids. Or kidults, I guess. Vinebound Tangled Together on April 17th, a silly co-op roguelite game where you play as two characters tied together. Lunar Remastered Collection on April 18th, a remaster of the classic JRPGs Lunar Silver Star Story and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue from the 90s. People are claiming the script has been censored, but from what I can gather, there's too much conflicting information on the subject, so I don't know. Use your own discretion. Rise of Rebellion on April 21st, a janky-looking 3D action game, but it has a sort of PS2-era nostalgia to it, I don't know. Malachi Poison of the Past on April 22nd, a cute adventure RPG where you fight against a mutant plant monster. Post Trauma on April 22nd, a survival horror game inspired by PS2 classics. Steel Seed on April 22nd, a sci-fi third-person action-adventure with stealth elements. Ha, I said the meme, but this one looks good. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered on April 22nd. Yeah, we talked about it in part 1. Faithful remaster that includes all the glorious jank you could ever hope for. Asura the Striker on April 23rd, a 3D shooter inspired by the old school ones from the 80s and 90s. Do some barrel rolls. Doll's Nest on April 23rd, a 3D action game where you customize mecha girls, and I kinda want it after hearing some of the game's music. Leafing Home on April 23rd, a 3D exploration and platformer game where you play as a little squirrel. Listen up! We tried to make those games even more extreme. Some things have to be learned the hard way. On April 23rd. Yeah, one of those minigame compilations again. Sunderfolk on April 23rd, a party-based tactical RPG made with co-op in mind, and you even use a smartphone or tablet app instead of a controller. Weird, but maybe innovative. The 100-Line Last Defense Academy on April 23rd, a cringy shonen school game. A turn-based strategy game with multiple endings. Yeah. Also, we talked about it in part 1. Only get it if you're okay with its allegedly unfaithful localization. Amerzone: The Explorer's Legacy on April 24th, an interactive fiction puzzle game set in an unknown place in Latin America. Bokura Planet on April 24th, a 2D co-op puzzle adventure game with some weird alien stuff. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 on April 24th, one of my most anticipated games of the year. This is a French take on a JRPG style of game with some beautiful artwork and music. Too bad I probably can't run it right now. Fatal Fury City of the Wolves on April 24th, a new entry in the old fighting game series. This one has accusations of censorship in it too, so do your own research before buying. Phantom Brave: The Lost Hero on April 24th, a sequel to the PS2 Phantom Brave, a game similar to Disgaea, but with radial movement rather than grid-based. For some reason, this PC version came out way later than the console release, so I didn't get to include it until now. Thanks, NIS. Necrophosis on April 25th, an exploration puzzle horror game that seems to mostly be a walking simulator, but damn, does it look out of this world. Mythical Concepts Starknock came out of early access on April 28th, a roguelite horde battler. Yeah, it's another Survivors-like, and it looks pretty chaotic, I dig it. Dimensionals came out of early access on April 29th, a cartoony turn-based tactics roguelite inspired by 90s cartoons for all you nostalgia boomers. Kyborg on April 30th, a 3D beat-em-up action roguelite where you get stronger the more cybernetic implants you get each run. Memoriopolis came out of early access on April 30th, a Greco-Roman style city builder that spans 2,500 years of history. Moroi on April 30th, a top-down hack-and-slash game, lots of violence and shit. MotoGP 25 on April 30th. Oh hey, maybe I do actually show realistic sports or motorcycle racing games sometimes. See? I appeal to all gamers. Skin Deep on April 30th, a first-person shooter survival immersive sim stealth thing where you're stuck on a spaceship. And you have no shoes, which is important in this game apparently. So, good luck. And there you have it, all the interesting games I could find for April 2025. If you watch these videos, you can never complain that there's nothing to play. Just saying. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out part 1 if you haven't yet, where I go over all the news from April, link in the description, and maybe the comments. If not, don't forget to leave a comment on what you think of any of these games we talked about today, and tickle that like button sensually. Or the dislike button if you're salty I didn't include some asset flip or roguelite deck builder that I missed. Share the video around to anyone who might find it interesting or anyone who's tired of dealing with AAA slop. Don't forget to check out my frequent unscheduled streams or my other content such as my top 10s and other stuff. Also, I will be making a review-ish video for Kai no Kiseki, or Trails Beyond the Horizon, soon, as well as my top 10 favorite video game music covers, so prepare yourselves for that. You can also follow my Steam curator that tracks all the games I talk about in this series, as well as any games on Steam that are featured on this channel. Stalk me on the X-Twitter where I post negative quantities of tweets, join my Discord to stalk me more intimately, or just to get alerts for when I upload, or catch my video content on Rumble or Odyssey. And as always with this inflated Sonic fan art of an industry, have high standards, low expectations.